Let's talk about some family killers. We're actually going to do this real quick. There's a lot of points, and most of these points are just for you to fill out. We don't have to discuss them for you to go, yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense. I do find this interesting. It'll give it away, but this is kind of cool. Number one, killing animal in America. You ready for this? You would think, what kills most people in America? Bears, sharks, wolves, alligator, snakes. More people are killed by deer than anything else in our country. Now, the reason I tell you this is because what I want you to see is sometimes the things that we perceive to be innocent, that we pull over on the side of the road and go, let me take his sweet little picture and feed him some M&Ms, are the very things that are the most dangerous. And when it comes to your marriage, there are some things that are, and families, there are some things that are really dangerous that we got to be careful of. Number one, family killers is live outside what you can afford. Got this one? You want me to do it?
No, that's you.
Okay, sorry. Wanted to make sure. I didn't want to jump in there and go too long for you. Live outside what you can afford. Now, we talked earlier about savings account versus debt versus everything else. Now, I will tell you from what we've understood and what we've studied, top 5 reasons for divorce is not financial reasons. But one of the most reasons for divorce is financial reasons. Because what takes place is when couples get in a bunch of debt and they start struggling to pay bills, and all of a sudden there's stress, and all of a sudden financial problems start hitting all those little other cracks you had in your marriage with this big wrecking ball and busting things open. Yeah, financial stress is hard on your marriage and on your family. And it'll be tough. It'll be really tough because you're going to want to buy things, and your kids are going to come in and they're going to go, Dad, I got 4 boys. Every one of them gave me the same speech. I was waiting for the last one because I kept thinking, surely he's going to come give me the speech. You know what it was? About to turn 16. Hey, Dad, Steve down the street got a new Mustang, brand spanking new Mustang for his 16th birthday. Yeah, it came, all 4 boys, and I gave them the same speech in return. I hope you get to ride in it because you're not going to get one. I'm not buying you a new. Why can't I have a new Mustang, Dad? Because I drive a 99 Chevrolet pickup, 160,000 miles. If anybody's getting a new Mustang around here, it's going to be your dad and not you. All right? Now, we did buy our kids. We told every one of our kids, and we said, we're going to spend $5,000. We're going to buy you your first car. And it will get decent gas mileage, and it'll get you to point A to point B safely. It will have an air conditioner because you live in Texas, and we will have a radio that works in it because we know that's going to be important to you. You tear this car up, you wreck this car, you rough with this car, then you're in trouble because this is your car. Be careful. And we bought all our kids their first little inexpensive car. 2 of them are still driving theirs. We told them when you get older and you can afford it and we are not paying your college bills, your rent, your anything, your cell phone bills, you can go buy you a new car with your money, but not until then, all right? Because we want you to understand that we want to be a family that doesn't have a lot of debt, and we struggled with that. Newly married couple, nobody explained to us credit cards, and it was no time. A couple of years into marriage, we had about $8,000 credit card debt. Nobody told. I thought they were a great deal. We only paid $20 a month minimum on that sucker. I loved them. Let's go eat at Dairy Queen. I only got to pay $20 next month. And then when Lee figured out what they were doing to us, and she said, do you know that we're paying, 28, 30% interest on these cards? And I said, what does that mean? And she explained, that Dairy Queen meal that we paid $25 for, it's going to cost us about $250 if we pay the minimum each month, I said, can they do that to us? And she said, we signed up for it, and we used Dave Ramsey. We got out of credit card debt, and paid off a bunch of other stuff, and we vowed that we would never, and we haven't, got back into debt. If we have a credit card, it's paid off at the end of every month. But we do not want to allow this to wreck our family because stuff isn't as important as relationships. So be very cautious about living outside what you can afford.
Constantly being negative to your kids and spouse is a killer. I'm just going to fess up right now that I am a glass half empty person. We shared our differences a while ago. Trey is glass half full. He's very, optimistic and positive. He's the one that tells the boys, y'all are the best cleaners in the world. Yet when, it was house cleaning day and they would clean their rooms and I'd walk in and it might look really great, but there'd be a pair of socks, in the floor. And my eyes will zone in on the pair of socks. Do I have to tell them, you did great, but there's a pair of socks? No, just tell them, you did a fantastic job. Those socks can lay in that floor and it'll be okay. But those kids need to be
You picked those up when they went to school the next morning, didn't you?
Yes. And, yeah. When they were little, and I'd teach them how to make their beds, and it might not be perfect, and I could straighten it up when they went to school, make it look,
She was Monica on Friends.
It's just so important to build them up instead of always being negative, because they are going to get so much negativity everywhere else they go. Even from their friends and their teachers and their coaches that should be building them up and being positive, they're going to get negativity. And so at home, they need to hear the positives. It's been said that kids will be what they hear that they are. And if they hear that they're dumb and they're selfish and they're slobs, they're going to be dumb, selfish slobs. They need to be built up. I loved the movie The Help. You've seen The Help with, the nanny and the nanny was, constantly being criticized and heard the negative, but she took care of this little girl, and she was going to make sure that that little girl was built up and heard the positives and heard the potential that she could be. And, she was told every day that you are kind, you are smart, you are important. And that little girl believed that and grew up to be that. So I just, I want to encourage you to let those negatives go and build up and encourage and bring out the positives in your kids and your spouse. Putting your children before your spouse can be a killer. We've talked about this several times throughout the day. We talked about the average couple gets 4 minutes a day together, and that's really not enough to have a healthy marriage. We get so busy and wrapped up with the kids' activities that we're scheduling our whole lives around them. And then when they go off and we have empty nest, a lot of times we look across the table and go, I don't even know who you are. So it's important to nurture your marriage while you're raising the kids. Make sure that not every activity revolves around the kids. Make sure you've got things that you like to do that, just for the two of you, so that when empty nest comes, you still have a healthy, solid marriage. We just saw this a couple of days ago, and when we flew, it really reminded us, they do the little oxygen mask demonstration, and they always tell you, put your mask on before you help your children or help somebody that needs assistance. Because if you're not healthy, how can you help your kids be healthy? So, we're teaching our kids how to have a healthy marriage. They're watching how you do marriage. So teach them how to have a healthy marriage, and
good point.
Make sure you're not putting your children before your spouse.
Number 4, be a passive father. Be a passive father. If you want to have hard times in your future, be a passive father. And that just means kind of leave everything to mom to do. She can be the one that disciplines. She can be the one that has the hard talks. We'll talk about hard talks in a minute, but as a dad, one of the things I understood was that I do like to be my son's friend. In fact, I'm a better friend to my son today than I was earlier in life, but my job was, God did not put my kids in my life for me to be their friend. He put my kids in my life for me to be their parent, to raise them. Were there times my kids did not like me? Absolutely. My job was not to wake up and say, I hope my kids don't like me today. But there were times where I told my kids, no, you cannot do that. Or yes, you will do this. And they did not like me. There will be times when your kids don't like you. That is okay. Your job is not to be liked all the time. Your job is to be a parent. And it is important. And as a father, sometimes you have to have hard talks. Sometimes you have to be the one that goes in and talks to your kids about whatever it is. I've done that with all my kids, even when they were in their mid-20s, and two of my boys, my two oldest boys, before they married, I had the talk of, hey, I know you have a serious girlfriend. I know y'all are planning on getting married. I want you to treat her nice. I want you to be respectful of her. At the same time, I also want you to remember that you are not married, and I want you to honor that vow until that time comes. Those are things you have to have. You ask your 18-year-old kid, are you drinking? Is anyone encouraging you to drink? Is anyone offering you something? Those are hard talks you don't like to have. Let me give you another one. My youngest son, he grew up in the digital age with the cell phones. Of course, we started ours out with a flip phone when they were in junior high. Our kids have to travel to play sports, and they might get in at 2 o'clock in the morning or 1 o'clock in the morning from a 2-hour game away. And last thing I want to do is go sit down and wait for a bus to show up, and I don't know when they're coming. So we got cell phones, flip phones for them to text us when they got in, so we go pick them up. So it was one of those deals. They needed a phone at that time in their life, but we didn't get them a smartphone. When they did get them a smartphone, we had hard talks about it. I would come in many times and I'd show Cooper. I'd say, Cooper, this is my Instagram, and I want you to see something. Do you see this woman here who wants to be my friend? She's not a real woman. I said, she don't really look like that. Whoever this is, they're just wanting me to click on a link that will take me to a website that I don't need to be looking at. And we would have those talks, and I'd go, do you ever get people like that want you to be their friend or follow you on Facebook? And I say, yeah, sometimes they'll send me messages and I just block them. And I would tell him, well done, that's exactly what you're supposed to do. That's what we expect to take place. Because sometimes you've got to have those awkward talks with your kids, because that's what God brought you to do. A lack of time. A lack of time is hard on your family.
Talk to us about quality time for a minute.
Yeah, quality time is important. Learn to play in your kids' world, not always expect them to come into your world. Depending on their age, jump with them on a trampoline. Shoot baskets in the driveway. Give them quality. Used to, in the 90s, we went through a horrible stage of people telling us things like, kids don't need quantity time, they just need quality time. And you can get this, whip in the kids' room for about 5 minutes and visit with them during the day, and that's all they need. And then we found out later, those same people start saying, oh, we messed that up. You don't know when you get quality time, it comes from quantity time. Meaning, you need to just spend a lot of time hanging out with your kids, because in that time, something's going to happen that they look back and go, that was one of the best days of my life. Never expected that day to be so much fun. The day that Connor still talks about, we played Mario until like all hours, one game after another, and it was not a planned thing. It just so happened that I made time and said, let's play. Find time to play with your kids, quality time.
There was a Wednesday night not too long ago that Trey left before I did for church, because I was still cleaning up the kitchen, and it was about 5 minutes before I needed to leave, and our youngest Cooper came in, and of course we're talking, he was a senior in high school, and getting him to talk about anything sometimes was like pulling teeth. And he came in and he wanted to chat. I mean, he just had his chatty pants on. And so I was kind of thinking, we gotta go, and then I thought, he wants to talk, so we're just gonna talk. And I think I finally snuck in the back of the auditorium. Class had already started. It was about 10 minutes past time, and I just kind of snuck in and sat down. Of course, Trey noticed because he was teaching, and afterwards he said, why are you late? Something happened? And I said, Cooper wanted to talk. So I listened, and it wasn't necessarily anything very important, but you never know when those important conversations are going to happen. So you've got to be flexible, and you've got to, listen on their own time, because you never know when those important things are going to come up.
Yeah. So if your kid starts talking, stop what you're doing and listen, right? Lack of communication. Lack of communication. You got to give them time, but you got to have good questions. Lee always does this well. The questions you ask.
Yeah, well, and for you and I, when we first got married, this was an issue too. Trey would come in from work, and I would, I'd say, what'd you do today? And I would always get the same answer every day. And he would say, nothing, nothing. I didn't do anything today. And I was young, we married very young, and I was young and immature, and I finally thought, he's just hiding something from me. He's just doing something he didn't want me to know about. But, we finally communicated enough for me to make him realize, I'm genuinely interested in what you did. He thought what he'd done all day was boring. Maybe he went to the nursing home and had coffee with somebody and worked on a lesson and all these things that he thought, why would she want to know any of that? And I finally made him realize, I'm home with a baby and a toddler, and I'm watching Barney, and I'm changing diapers, and I just need some adult conversation, and it helps me feel like I'm a little bit a part of your day if he'll just communicate with me, those what you think are boring details that I really do find interesting. So communicate, be open, and like Trey said, with kids, sometimes you have to ask specific questions. I know when our kids would get in the car after school and I'd say, how was your day? I would just get, it's fine. That's all you get. And so I finally learned, you've got to ask, well, what did you not like about your day? What did you do at school today that was fun? What did you do at school that was hard? Where did you show somebody a kindness today? I mean, you had to really ask specific questions if you were going to get them to open up and communicate with you.
True. Don't be afraid to unplug. There needs to be times where, for us, dinner table was that way. When we had supper at nighttime, everyone was there. We didn't start till everybody showed up, and your phone was supposed to be on the bar or in your pocket, and it was not to be out at the table. And if you got it out, you got called out for, hey, so-and-so's looking at their phone for whatever it was. And so there needs to be times when you unplug, when you play games and unplug, when you eat supper and you unplug. And so don't be afraid to say, hey, we're going to have game night tonight, or we're going to have movie night tonight as a family, whatever it is, and you just choose to unplug for a while. It's always tough trying to figure out some cell phone rules. Ours has always been this. Now, you can do anything you want to, but this has worked well for the Morgan family. If I'm paying for your phone, I have access to your phone. Meaning, I want you to understand, 16-year-old son, if I'm paying for your cell phone, if I ask to see your phone, you have to hand it to me. If you don't like that, then don't be doing anything on your phone that you don't want me to see. When you get out of this house and you're paying all of your bills, including your own cell phone, I won't be able to look at your cell phone anymore. So just the fact that my kids knew at any moment we could look at their cell phones always kind of, I think, kept them on their toes at all times. We had regular talks about cell phones. We talked about that. We had hard talks about drinking and drugs and sex and everything else. Those are things that have to take place. Another one is, and we want to bring this up because we always have lots of questions about blended families. One of the biggest questions we get family-wise is about blended families, which is a big thing today. And what couples do going into a blended family is you've got a husband, a man and a woman who have fallen in love, and he has some kids and she has some kids, and they think because they're in love, everybody else in their family is going to be in love. And 2 months into marriage, his kids don't like her, and her kids don't like him, and they don't like each other, and they're going, what in the world have we done? And there's some certain things that you got to understand. Number one, you got to be patient with blended families. Families do not blend in 2 weeks. It takes years sometimes for families to blend the way they're supposed to. There's some great material in our world, Christian material on healthy blended families, healthy blended marriage, and how to do those things. And educating yourself works really well. I came from a blended family, and so I can understand some of these points. I've asked my dad and parents some of the questions about how did you do this and how did you do that. But you need to acknowledge that it's going to be hard and it's going to take a long time. Not everything is going to be smooth with blended families. You have to have a plan up front. The worst thing you can do is get married and go, we'll figure it out when it happens. You need to have ahead of time things figured out about who's doing the disciplining, who is going to do this, what happens when this is going to take place. You need to step in your kids' shoes, meaning just because you all of a sudden come in and go, well, I like my new spouse or whatever it is, your kids have just come from a family that has been broken apart for some reason, or a family that's different, and they're adding new people in it, and you need to step into your kids' shoes and understand what they're feeling, and that may be tough. Always, always, always in a blended family, and even not in a blended family, have your spouse's back. always. That doesn't change. Have your spouse's back. That is the number one rule. Be specific. Here's what we expect of you guys. This is what we expect. If you have questions, let us know. Date your kids, meaning it is important. This works for anything, whether you're a blended family or nuclear family. Spend some time with each individual kid. That's very important. Find a time in which mom or dad can just go for a shake at Sonic with one kid, just them alone. Or another kid and go to a movie, just them alone. Have some date nights with individual kids so you can get to know all of them better. Understand, I don't know if it's on there or not, but understand that love trumps DNA. Love the kids that God's put in your house. Don't make it any longer of his, mine, and ours. It's just ours. That's the way it should be. Be respectful of the ex, but have clear boundaries. Those are just things that, like I said, there's a lot of good material on that. But make sure you understand there is love, extra love that's got to take place in blended family. Number 8, don't model values and integrity. That's a quick marriage killer. So here's some general rules for kids. And I think you're going to look at these and go, yeah, that makes sense. Don't ever lie for your kids. Don't do that. At some point, every one of my kids in their high school career, one Monday morning rolled over and said, Dad, I am so tired. I just need to sleep for another hour. If you will just let me be late to school today. I promise I'm not behind on any of my assignments, and I just need a little bit more sleep. Just let me be late today and write me a note. Then I would appreciate that greatly. And I've told every one of them, I will be happy to write you a note, but the note will say you chose to sleep in. There is nothing wrong with this kid whatsoever. He is not sick. Every one of them got up and got out of bed and went to school. I was not going to lie for them that they had a doctor appointment or they had this or they had something else. Don't lie for your children. You do, you're just teaching them it is okay to lie. Give your children rules. They need rules. In fact, it's kind of interesting. 87% of college students say that their parents weren't strict enough on them. You're probably thinking, man, I am so strict on my kids. Give your kids rules. They need rules. Rules is a way you show your kids you love them. When your kids are in trouble, don't think everyone's out to get them. I don't know how you view that, but that's changed a lot since I was a kid. When I got in trouble in junior high and high school, and that principal would call my mom and say, hey, Miss Morgan, your son is in the office in here, and I'm going to give him 3 swats. Is that okay? You know what she would not say? She not one time ever did she say, oh, surely not my son. He would not. Obviously, the teacher was unfair with him, or maybe another student got him in trouble. You know, somebody is trying to just get him in trouble. You know what she'd say? She'd say, you whip him, and you tell him when he gets home, I'm going to whip him again. And I hated those phone calls because I knew she never was going to take my side. But we live in a time to where all of a sudden our kid gets in trouble and we go, well, it's a teacher or it's a coach or it's the other kids out to get them or the principal or somebody. You know, believe it or not, your kid and my kid just makes mistakes sometimes and they mess up and they need to get in trouble for it. All right? Don't think everyone is out to get them. Don't threaten discipline and not discipline them. If you're going to threaten to ground them, ground them. Don't just threaten stuff. If you're going to tell your kid, you do that again, I'm going to whip you. If they do it again, you better do what you follow through with what you said. Make God a priority in their lives. Understand that there is a difference between abuse and discipline. I think we talked about that earlier. Discipline for willful disobedience and not childishness. When you tell your child to do something and they disobey, they need discipline for it. When your kid knocks a milk glass over at the table and makes a huge mess that just, drives you nuts, that was childishness. It was an accident. Don't wait to start too late. Were you supposed to talk about that one right there?
You can go right ahead.
Sorry, I just ran right on through your point.
You just finish up.
Okay. Don't wait to start too late. What age is that when kids have their 5 years old, when kids get their personality set? Yeah, so you got to start early. There's another one I'm looking for. Corporal punishment versus verbal correction. There will come a time when swatting our boys on the rear end didn't work anymore, and you just say, hey, put your cell phone on the bar over there, or drop your car keys over there. And a couple of times they've told their mama, can you just not give me a whipping? Because they realized this was going to hurt. Corporal punishment was hurting a lot less than being grounded from something. And then there are times where maybe you just need to give them some verbal correction. Don't be inconsistent.
You go ahead. Finish up.
Don't be inconsistent. You can't discipline them once for this and next time go, we'll let that slide. Don't discipline out of anger. Because you're mad at them and because they did something stupid and embarrassed you is not the reason that you're disciplining them. You are disciplining to correct behavior. Explain why you are disciplining. I like this. Don't do that. This is going to hurt me worse than it's going to hurt you stuff. And don't do the why, well, because I said so. When your kid asks, you try to give them an answer. We tried that. We had one kid that well, why am I getting in trouble for this? And we would tell him. But why am I getting in trouble for this? And we would tell him. And then on the third time, but I don't understand, why am I getting in trouble for this? And we go, because I said so. There is a time to say that, but it's after you have tried to explain to them and they just refuse to catch it. There is a time to go, yeah, because we're the parent here and we can do that. Err on the side of grace. Err on the side of grace. There was one on there about don't pull strings to get your kids out of trouble. Did you see that one? Okay, I didn't talk about that one. That's the one I kept thinking was going to pop up in a second. I zipped through it too quick. Another thing that we do as parents sometimes, maybe it happens in a small town and not a big town, but one of the things we do in a small town sometimes, we know people and we kind of pull some strings, get our kids out of trouble. But sometimes when our kids have done something, the best thing we can let them do is, get in trouble. My son, I had our second oldest son, he's 6'6", he's a high school English teacher, and he was a fantastic kid. Now, what I mean is, he just didn't do anything wrong. He just was he was easy. If they'd all been like that, it'd been awesome. He just didn't ever get in trouble for anything. We trusted him, never pulled stunts. One night he calls, and we have a curfew in our little community of 12, which works great. Weeknights is 11, weekends is 12, and so that just always made it, well, what time do I got to be home? Curfew's at 11 on the weekdays, 12 on the weekends. That's what time your curfew, see you then. Text me and let me know where you are. And that worked really well. One night he sends a message about 11:15, and he goes, we are over at Shelby's house finishing a movie. These are all church kids, youth group kids. We were finishing a movie, but it's not going to end until about 12:30. He's 17 at the time. And he goes, can I stay and watch and finish this movie? And I said, now, Parker, I have no problem with it, but you understand, curfew is at midnight, and if you get in trouble, you're going to get in trouble. He said, nobody gets in trouble for staying out past curfew. Guess who got pulled over? Coming home, 12:15, 12:30, pulls over, they wrote him a ticket. He is mad when he comes in. My first thought when he tells me, honestly, my first thought was, I know everyone in the police department, I know the judge, and I honestly think I could have very easily sent the judge a text message. I don't even need to call him and say, Parker was at a church thing Friday night and he got a ticket for being out at 12:15 instead of 12, and I gave him permission. And my friend Jay would have said, tear that thing up and throw it in the trash can. But his mama reminded me, but is he going to learn anything about rules if we pull strings to get him out of trouble? And I said, probably not. So we came up with a plan, and we went in and visited with Parker, and we said, Parker, here's the rules. You asked to stay out past midnight, which is against the rules, and got in trouble for it. We did give you permission for that and didn't tell you you had to be home at midnight. So whatever the fine is, and I had no clue what it was, we will pay for half of it, and you will pay for the rest. We will go before the judge, which we actually had to do, go before the judge on Monday, and I told the judge, we will be paying this ticket, and don't you question this. We will pay half. So $120 was what his thing was for a kid that pushes a lawnmower in 100-degree heat. $60 is a lot of money. He paid half, we paid half. How many times would you guess that he asked to stay out past curfew after that right there? That would be 0. Never one time again did he go, can I break some rules? Never was questioned again. Because we thought sometimes you've got to let kids learn to pay the price for things they've done. And we've had kids. We've had principals. My closest friend was a high school principal. One of my closest friends calls me one day, and I'm trying to figure out, why is he calling me on the office phone and not my cell phone? And he goes, Mr. Morgan. And I said, yes, Mr. And I'm just playing around with him. You know, I'm just, what do you do? He goes, I have Connor in my office. And I go, oh, yes, Mr. Kirkpatrick. And so it's kind of like, oh, so you're the principal now and not the... And said, Connor got his cell phone out after a test. Said he turned his in, he went, but the rules were he was not supposed to have his cell phone out when the test was over until everybody finished the test. And they were told up front, 3 days ISS if that took place. What should we do with Connor? And I said, 3 days ISS. Tell him he'll start Monday. You know, and Connor's listening on the speakerphone. I had no doubt he was there. But, you know, come to find out, some little girl, some cute little girl across the classroom had finished her test, and she had sent him a text and said, hey, look at your phone. And he looked at his phone and he got caught. And instead of going, hey, well, that's not fair, she shouldn't have, let him pay the price. Next time he'll know you keep that phone in your pocket until the tests are over. Kids make mistakes, and sometimes the best thing you can do is let them pay the price. Always err on the side of grace. If you're not sure, be gracious to your kids. I think this is God's rule in life. I really do. I think James tells us this right here. Be merciful as you want God to be merciful to you. Meaning, the way you treat other people in mercy and grace is how God's going to treat you. So if you ever have to wonder, should I be harsh or gracious to whoever this is, choose to be gracious, because that's how I want God to treat me someday instead of harsh. When we moved to Childress, Texas in 2001, somewhere right around this area, we took this picture of these 4 little boys that we had fun raising, and then we blinked, and man, they're like all adults now, all flying on it. It doesn't take long. You blink, and they grow up and fly away. And as a parent, honestly, that's your job and my job. I love watching my kids do life on their own. I love watching them make decisions, sometimes make mistakes, without Dad having to be involved in everything that they do. Raise your kids so that you work yourself out of a job, because that's kind of our job as a parent. There is a homework assignment, and we'll close. We'll pray together. Is it in here? There you go. You see the family challenge? Look over some of these and let's see if we can do some of those for a second. Did y'all find that? Is it in there? Okay, good. No criticism. No criticism. Cut that out. If anybody catches you being critical, negative, or nagging, if you slip up on this rule, you have to immediately apologize and say 2 kind things about your spouse or your child. All right? So for the next, is it 5 days or 7 days on your list? 5. Okay, sorry about that. Mine's an old one. I wasn't sure if we changed it or not. Mine's a what? 14 days?
It says 2 days.
Two. I like that, yes. 2 days, that's all I can handle. Zero criticism for the next 5 days. If you're a glass half empty person, you might want to start a little list of things you love about your family right now so that if you have to say some stuff, right? Number 2, spend 30 minutes in conversation each day, no electronics for the next 7 days. So that just means find some time to watch a movie together. And you say, well, where's your conversation? Ask some questions when it's over. Find the dinner table. My goodness, you get 30 minutes of dinner conversation right there. Ask what everybody, spend some time having some conversation for the next 5 days. Number 3, write your spouse and your kids. All right, this is good. Make sure you tell your kids. I have kids who their love language is praise, and absolutely the best thing you can do is send them a text occasionally and tell them, hey, I am so proud of the man that you have become. And I'm telling you what, they just talk about all the time, Dad, I love that text. I needed to hear that today. So write your spouse and your child a note for the next 5 days. I don't know if you posted it on Facebook, your spouse might see it, but your kids may not. But leave a note, send a text. Write something out, put it in your kid's lunchbox. My favorite thing, I packed Cooper's lunch as a senior in high school every day. Cooper, for some reason, loved having a lunch and not eating cafeteria food. And every day I wrote him some little note on a sandwich baggie with a Sharpie. Sometimes it was the worst dad joke I could think of. I'd even Google horrible dad jokes. And then sometimes it was just I'm proud of you, kid. You are an awesome kid. But I had more fun senior year packing that kid's lunch in the morning times and getting those things ready to go. And he still talks about, sometimes he'd go, I showed my friends that at the table where we were all eating. They thought it was a horrible joke too, Dad. But it was fun stuff. So be good at giving praise for the next 5 days to your family. Thank you to this church, to Andrew, to all the work that's been going on to get this ready. Thank you for staying around. You guys are awesome. Thank you for taking an interest in your marriage and family. This is what we need to be doing on a regular basis in churches. And if you're a visitor here and you're hanging out with us today, if you don't have a church home, man, this church loves families, and you need to check this place out. Good place. Thank you to the Graymere folks for letting us come hang out with y'all today. Let's have a word of prayer and we'll be done for the day, all right? Father, thank you for your love and your grace. Thanks for being so good to us, for blessing us with family. May we not take that for granted. Relationships matter more than anything else. Maybe we get to the end of our life and we be remembered for a person who loved you and loved our spouse and loved our kids. That's success. Thank you, Father, for Jesus. Thank you for this church. And Father, in your Son's name we pray. Amen. Thank you all very much.